Good afternoon. Welcome to the afternoon session. Today we have with us Professor B.K. Dhoop, whom you think I know earlier. He has wide experience as an industrialist as well as an academician. At present he is heading a HR unit in an MNC. With his wide experience and knowledge, we will be enlightened, and I feel students should make use of this situation and ask a lot of questions. Today we are going to talk to you about emotional intelligence, the importance of emotional intelligence and why it is required, whether it can be learnt. All these things will be touched upon in the discussion. I request Professor B.K. Dhoop to initiate the topic.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good afternoon to all of you viewers. It is my privilege to be here this afternoon interacting with you, and I would be happy if some questions are put before me so that that will ensure some discussion. Now I am going to talk on the topic emotional intelligence. We have all been hearing about IQ, intelligence quotient, and we have grown up comparing ourselves with our friends, colleagues, our bosses, and always thinking that our intelligence quotient is quite high because we are intelligent people. As managers, we have to handle diverse situations. We have to handle a lot of people. We have to ensure proper allocation of resources. We have to manage crises. We have to manage situations. We have to manage technology. We have to manage everything, finances, and so many other things. Now, a certain amount of intelligence is certainly required in handling all these activities, and that is why the word manager. All of you who are studying now are going to get into some or other managerial position, undoubtedly. So why this suddenly we are talking of emotional intelligence? Let me tell you that today emotional intelligence is considered to be a very important aspect of every managerial responsibility, managerial job. What is emotional intelligence? There are two words, emotions and intelligence. This actually means intelligent use of emotions by a manager. We are human beings and we are emotional people. We are always driven by some or other emotion. Now the question of using your emotions intelligently has never been thought of us. But actually we are doing it in every walk of our life. We are always having some or other emotion playing on our mind, and by making use of those emotions, we decide whether we should act this way or that way. Now, when there is a crisis on your workplace, some junior suddenly doesn't listen to you and flouts your instruction. What kind of emotion suddenly swamps you? You feel so bad. You feel that this man, who is a junior man, and he has been taking instructions from you all along, he is reporting to you. Suddenly, how did he choose to go against me and flouted my instruction? And suddenly you are swamped by some emotion, which suddenly clouds your thinking. You don't know what to do in that situation. That is what we call emotional intelligence. In that situation, how do you really resolve the situation? How do you handle the person? How do you ensure that the work gets done properly? So what actually you do, you intentionally make use of your emotions, work for you by using the emotions to help and guide your behavior, and thinking in ways that enhance your results. Basically, as a manager, you are supposed to give results. You have management has chosen you as a manager to ensure that you deliver results. And how do you deliver results? You can't deliver results through only your working, but you have to manage so many people working below you, manage the situation, manage the resources, as I already mentioned. So how do you ensure that? So that is what is emotional intelligence. How do you behave? How do you control your emotions? How do you make use of those emotions to ensure that you deal with the situation in the right manner, intelligently, and resolve the situation, and ensure that the people who are working with you follow your instructions, understand the situation, get guidance from you, adequate guidance from you, and then perform according to the expected results. Now there could be a number of applications of emotional intelligence in the workplace. Resolving a sticky problem with a co-worker, as I just now mentioned, closing a deal with a difficult customer. You are haggling with the customer. You want that whatever rates or bids that you are quoting should be accepted, but somehow or other the customer or the client is not listening to you, and there is a kind of argument going on. Now how do you close the deal with a difficult customer? He is difficult. So how do you cajole him? How do you manage him emotionally or otherwise? That is what you are supposed to do as a manager. Then staying on top of a task till it is completed. Any task that you are handling day in, day out are going to be extremely difficult tasks. You have to use all your judgment, your intelligence, your emotions properly, so that without getting bogged down with one or the other aspect, you deliver the results. So that is what emotional intelligence we are talking about. Now what kind of, if we talk of emotions, can you name a few emotions? Let me help you out. Anger, frustration, happiness, jealousy, worry, excitement, fear, inhibitions, satisfaction, anxiety, a sense of inadequacy, sense of boredom, often feeling hurt about things, feeling of guilt. All these things are emotions. Do you agree with me or not? I will explain. When somebody doesn't listen to you on the workplace, and you know that you have to deliver the result, the schedules have to be met, and suddenly you find some dissidence within the department, what happens to you? You get frustrated, you get angry. On the other hand, if everybody is working like a teamwork and they are giving results as expected, you feel a sense of happiness. Somebody is, showing one-upmanship and and is competing with you and showing, somehow he is able to show to the management that he is doing better than you. Suddenly you are swamped with a feeling of jealousy. This is nothing, not a feeling, but this is a emotion, kind of emotion. Worry. You worry when you don't deliver the results. That is those are emotions working for you. Excitement, fear, inhibitions, inadequacy, anxiety, all these things are emotions. Now all these things are, either you manage them and make them productively work for you, or you get bogged down with this and you become totally unproductive. Now emotions, unlike behavior, are not susceptible to direct control by people. Suppose you have got your emotions to deal with, you can't deal with them straight away. You can't control them as you desire. If you are feeling angry, if you are feeling worried, if you are feeling hurt, it is not in your hands to control them suddenly. Behavior, certainly you can control. You can, if you are feeling angry, still you can smile and you can show that you are not angry. That is somehow can be controlled by you. But emotions certainly can't be controlled by you. So emotions have to be managed. Either the emotions become too heavy for you to manage and you become unproductive and you can't deliver the result as a manager, or you handle the emotions intelligently and you become an emotionally intelligent, stable person. That is what we are talking about, and that is what managers are supposed to be doing.
Can I intervene here?
Yes.
I just wanted to know the slight distinction between when you say, is there any difference between emotions versus temperament?
Yeah.
Or is it, are they the same?
No. Thank you. Very good questions. No, temperament is something, is a part of your psyche. Your psychological domain is there, and temperament is a essential component of that domain. Whereas emotions are similar in any human being. At a given time, in a given situation, you are bound to be affected by the situations that prevail, and because of the situation you develop some kind of emotions. If the situation is favorably inclined, then you will develop emotions which are very favorable. Otherwise, if the situation doesn't help you and it is not really as desired by you, as perceived by you, as conceived by you, then this situation is going to create emotions or develop emotions in you which are derogatory. So this is what.
And supposing we have two types of personality, like type A, type B, which we call. Can these people also be, will they be able to perform emotionally better when they are working as managers in the organizations?
Yeah, certainly the type A, I would need some help in this. Type A, you are talking about?
Socially amicable, and they are quite ambitious. They are not amicable, sorry. They are not amicable, but they are very ambitious and overdriven.
Overdriven, yes.
So these people always have different targets,
Yes.
or they want to achieve something within a short period of time.
I agree with you.
Oh.
Certainly those people who are type A and who are aggressive, very aggressive,
Yes.
and who want to achieve targets set by themselves, they are sometimes emotionally not very stable at times. Whereas the person who is more balanced, for being a better emotionally intelligent person, the person has to be more balanced and has to have proper understanding of the situation he is dealing with. So the question put by you is a very difficult question for me to answer in this context, but basically I can only tell you that much.
Okay.
And then if we talk of behavior and emotions, this diagram can tell you that 1/10 of what you see is behavior, and 9/10 of what everything is in the psychological domain of the individual are emotions. So the behavior can be seen superficially from your face, from your actions and all that, but sometimes emotions are hidden and some emotions are not seen, but emotions are clearly felt by the individual. Now, criticism when delivered destructively causes emotional imbalance or fallout. Somebody, your boss calls you one fine morning and tells you, Mr. Dhoop, you are not performing according to my expectations. Whereas you have been thinking in your heart of hearts that you have been doing excellently well. And suddenly this criticism comes from your superior. It really imbalances you. And this creates a lot of emotions. And so many complex emotions can be there as a result. You see, suddenly there would be an emotion of rebellion, or emotion of a kind of emotion where you feel inadequate, you feel hurt, you feel totally, you suddenly feel that you are incompetent. You have been made to feel incompetent, a feeling of incompetency. Whereas actually you know that you are very competent, but because of that destructive criticism, it can for a moment create all these emotions in you. in your mind. So how do you handle? As a manager, you have to handle. You certainly cannot start crying, or you cannot show yourself that you are very weak. Although those things are happening inside you, still intelligently you have to manage those emotions and face the challenging situation as a manager. Similarly, constructive criticism is gainful for both the giver and receiver. Constructive criticism is very healthy. It is both for the person who is giving and person who is receiving. Say for example, if in a given situation, I am not very happy with the individual working under me, and I have observed that a few personality traits of his are not amenable to performance at the desired level which I am expecting. And despite my telling him number of times and making him understand what is the lacuna, what is the shortfall, he is not able to make it up. Then how do I handle it? If I call him and if I tell him constructively that see, together we have to improve, in a teamwork situation we have to improve, these are the expectations and this is where the shortfall is there. And if constructively I tell him, make him understand, and then he understands and he puts himself to the task and he upgrades himself and tries to bring himself up to that desired level. So don't you think that is a better method of giving feedback? So anyhow, so all this feedback or the criticism that we undergo in our managerial capacity gives rise to number of emotions. It could be anger, it could be hurt, it could be embarrassment, it could be anything like that. It could be a very pleasant kind of emotion where somebody is appreciating your effort. So, but as a manager, though you are supposed to be handling all these emotions, but every time we find that in all given situations it is not possible to manage the situation. So we have to really understand what is the method, how we are going to make ourselves handle that. Sometimes what happens, suddenly when there is a number of emotions that engulf you, somebody criticizes you in a given situation and you are not prepared, suddenly so many emotions could flare up in your mind and you are not able to manage the emotions. It also clouds your thinking, it also makes your communication ineffective because you are not able to, at that time you become so emotionally involved that sometimes you are not able to express yourself correctly. So it also affects your thinking, it also affects your communicating ability and so many things. So unless as a manager we can manage our emotions appropriately in a given situation, it becomes very difficult at times to manage all these things. So what actually is supposed to be done? Emotional intelligence is about using the wisdom of emotion as a source of information. How do you manage your emotions to get the information? How do you manage your emotions to get the people motivated? And how do you connect with people? In my experience in working in the industry for so many years, I have seen that at times managers becomes too bogged down with his daily routine that he forgets to connect with people. And when you are handling so many people, like a child, if the parent doesn't look after the child or doesn't connect with the child every single day, the child feels forgotten, neglected. Similarly, I have seen the employees who are working with you, they look for a brief conversation, a small pat in the back, a small smile to them every day, a good morning, a very pleasant good morning in the morning. So these are the techniques how you connect with the people, and all these things are driven through emotions. If you are happy, if you are in a happy mood, your good morning will be a pleasant one. If you are not unhappy and if you are angry, even if you say good morning, it is not going to be a pleasant good morning. So this is a means of connecting with the people, and this also goes a long way in motivating the people, and this also helps you to seek information, share information with the people. If you are thinking, if your mind or thinking is clouded, and if you are not able to speak properly and effectively and communicate effectively, then the information sharing also is at a loss. Now, IQ is intelligent in handling some of the technical jobs or some of the jobs that you are handling in your as a daily core, as a daily job that you are handling. Whatever job you are dealing with, you have to have certain amount of intelligence, and you have to use or apply that intelligence in, getting those results. But emotional intelligence is something different. When we talk of leadership, all of us know that leadership in a manager is a very important trait. Now, what is a leader that he does which is slightly different from manager? Manager is managing the resources, managing the people, managing the situation. Leader, what is he doing? He is, setting examples before people. He is driving the people to push themselves to make impossible possible. A leader is supposed to get superlative experience, superlative success, results. A leader leads the people and extracts whatever the best out of the people. So leader, in order to become a leader, a manager to become a leader, it is important that he possesses those emotional intelligence qualities. It is good to work smartly, but it is important, more important, that you work in a team and get the results through a team, and not single-handed. You are not able to give result nowadays in the present day context. And teams are supposed to be giving better results in any case. So when you manage team, when you manage a group of people, and you manage intelligent people to extract the best out of them, you have to use the emotional intelligence. You have to drive with that kind of intelligence. That will give you results, that will give you success. Only the cognitive ability in a manager is not enough. Emotional intelligence is equally important. Now, Goldman, a scientist, he explained that human brain is wired that intuitively we understand what is going to happen. For example, when you meet any person first time, you immediately form an impression about him or her. Either you understand that he is very good person, reliable, honest, sincere, hardworking person, immediately in a second, or otherwise you get a feeling that somehow the person is not dependable and you should better, not become too friendly with him. What is that? That is a quality which is due to the emotional intelligence that you possess. And emotional intelligence provides any individual with so many competencies, which could be either personal or social. Now, what exactly is emotional intelligence? Let's get into a little more aggressively into the subject. Now, basically there are 4 clusters. When we talk of emotional intelligence, we are talking of 4 different things. One is regarding self, which is known as self-awareness cluster. There are a group of traits which provide the individual with self-awareness competencies. What are those? Number 1, emotional self-awareness. Number 2, accurate self-assessment. You see, emotional self-awareness. The question whether we know ourselves in detail or completely is a very, always debatable question. How much do we know ourselves? Are we really knowing everything about ourselves? No, certainly not. So, the degree to which we know ourselves is some emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment. Whatever act we perform in a given situation, how we behave, how we act, that also needs to be assessed, whether our action is okay, whether our action falls short, or our action is excellent. So that accurate self-assessment must be done by every manager, whether the behavior, the action taken in a given situation was the right action or anything was falling short. Similarly, third trait in the self-awareness cluster is self-confidence. How much self-confidence you have. A manager who is doing everything very efficiently, very properly, but when he confronts his boss, his superior, somehow he is not confident enough and he is not able to portray everything correctly, and he gives an impression that somehow he is not okay, somehow he is incompetent, he is not sufficiently competent. What is that? That is the quality of self-confidence that exudes from your personality. Either you are a confident person or you are not a confident person. So, self-awareness cluster, one of the important components is self-confidence of the manager. This is one cluster. Second cluster is self-management cluster. The first one was self-awareness. This is second cluster is self-management. How do you manage yourself? One is awareness, whether you are aware at all or not. Suppose you are aware and there is something lacking, some shortfall is there. How do you manage it? In this cluster, the number one trait is empathy. All of you must be familiar with this word, but I would like to explain this a little bit. Empathy is nothing but when you are wearing some shoes, you are wearing some behavior, Now, when you deal with another person, you go and meet him with all your behavior and style and the kind of person you are.
That is, I think empathy is feeling for others.
Feeling for others, putting yourself into their shoes.
Yeah.
That is exactly the thing. But before that, this term is very most commonly used, that putting yourself in other shoes. But one important catch here is that before wearing other person's shoes, you should remove your shoes. You should become totally normalize yourself.
Yes.
Okay, and then only you wear other person's shoes. But if you are wearing your shoes also and other person's shoes also, then the whole situation becomes a little dicey and colored. So that coloring of the situation is not required. You should perceive the situation in a very neutral manner. So that is empathy. Second important aspect is organizational awareness. You are working for a company, but how many of us know the organization in totality? We don't. We are only knowing the domain in which we are functioning. If I am a HR guy, I am more worried about HR function. I am not bothered about technical function. I am not about production function. I am not worried about marketing function. I give a heck for all those things. Why? Because I am a manager, I am supposed to be handling all those people in working for the company. I must know about the people, number one. I must know about the processes. I must know about the systems that drive the processes. So, in order to be more effective and a emotionally intelligent guy, I must have proper understanding about the organization. Similarly, third component is service orientation. That any person who is emotionally intelligent with approach a subject or approach an individual without any bias, totally in a biasless manner, and with a feeling of providing a kind of service or handling a kind of service. That approach itself is different, not as a boss, not as an expert, not as somebody overriding power, a person with influence and power, but with a attitude of providing the necessary service in that situation. I may be an expert, but what is my role? I am an expert and I can't throw my weight around merely because I am an expert. But what is important is, wherever my skill is required, I must be able to provide that service to complete that job. So that service orientation is very important. The third cluster is social awareness cluster. First was self. Now, other two clusters are when the entire group or the society as a whole, wherever we are placed, comes into play. Because we are dealing with the society, we are dealing with the group, the team, the people in the organization. So the second set of cluster, the first component is social awareness cluster. That means the manager must be socially aware individual, and he should know how to deal with the people in the group, in the team. For that, what is important is self-control. How do you deal with people? Are you in control of your own, character, your personality or your individual traits? Are you in control of yourself or not? Or you are totally out of control? Anybody out of control in a situation, suppose a person who is very angry, he is out of control, he is not in control of himself. How is he going to handle the situation? Because that anger is going to, that emotion, the anger emotion is going to spoil everything. So self-control is very important. Conscientiousness, that means, what is that conscientiousness? That you have the understanding of the situation, complete understanding. And what is your role in that? You are conscious. So that conscientiousness is important. Without understanding the situation, without understanding the entire, all aspects of the situation and your role in that situation, you are again going to make some mistake. Adaptability. Third important component is adaptability. In a given situation, the manager must have the capability to adapt himself to that situation. You should not be an odd man out. Because if a group of people are, in an excited condition, now you should not demonstrate a trait where you start shouting at them and you start behaving in a erratic manner because something is not to your liking. So that is going to spoil the matter further. So therefore, adaptability to a given situation is very important. Achievement orientation naturally is very important for any manager. That psyche, that personality of the manager demands that he has to set goals, he has to devise targets, and he has to prompt all his team members to move towards those targets and achieve them. So that achievement orientation has to be initiated by the manager himself. Then last important trait in this domain or in this cluster is initiative. A manager has to have a lot of initiative. And what do you mean by initiative? That start any activity with full effort, with full zeal, with full stamina, with complete resources planned at your beck and call, and all those things. Initiative is something very important. The last cluster is social skills. Like the first two clusters, we had the self, and the first was awareness of the self. Second was the managing. How do you manage the self? After becoming aware about self, how do you manage whatever the gaps are there? Similarly, in the second set of cluster, social awareness. When you deal with number of people, are you ever aware about the traits of all the people, about the situation you are dealing, about the initiative that is required, whether you are adaptable, whether you have the achievement orientation or not. After that, how do you manage? After knowing all that, how do you really manage? That is social skills. Now, social skills, the number one parameter is leadership. That leadership quality has to be there in the manager. How do you lead a group of people? How do you set targets for them? How do you develop the performance yardsticks? How do you guide them? How do you motivate them? How do you provide the resources to them? How do you set challenging tasks and roles for them, and how do you provide necessary resources and situations and everything, and how do you ensure that each member of the team delivers on schedule. So that leadership quality has to be there. Then the communication ability. Communication is something, single factor a manager has to contend with every day of his life a number of times. And in most of the cases I have seen that communication falters or breaks in so many places, in so many occasions, at so many occasions, and practically every day of my life I have been trying to become a very good communicator, effective communicator, but I have failed to a great major, sufficiently major, to a major extent. Why? Because communication is something, a skill which is very important, which you have to train the people right from day one. You have to groom the people, understand your language, you understand their language, and you perceive the situation correctly, both of you together. And it is a big subject. I can conduct a session on communication for 5 days, so still it will not be complete, because a role of manager and managerial communication is of paramount importance. Anyway, the third factor is influence. How a manager develops or wields that influence on his people, on the situation, to ensure that the results are achieved. Change catalyst. Change is omnipresent. We all know that every day of our life something is changing, everything is changing all around us. Similarly, in a managerial situation, in an organization, the manager also contends with a situation which is continuously changing. Technology is changing, expectations are changing, people are changing, finances are changing, work situation is changing, everything is changing all around you. How do you manage change and how do you catalyze change? That means with the changing circumstances, how do you also bring about change in your functional ability, in your role as a manager, role as a team. Conflict management. Conflict is a very important dimension of all our lives. We have conflict in the morning with our child maybe. He is wanting something and you don't want to give him, there is a conflict. There is a conflict with your wife. There is a conflict between wife and the husband. So conflict is all around us. But as a manager, as a emotionally intelligent person, it is one of the critical importance. It is critically important that you manage conflict all around you, and particularly in the managerial capacity in your workplace. You have to manage conflict all the time. And unless you manage conflict effectively, you cannot get people under you working properly and giving you desired results. And that quality is very effectively handled by an emotionally intelligent person. Teamwork and collaboration. Naturally, if you are a good manager and if you have to manage a team, you have to ensure healthy teamwork and collaboration by all the members of the team. So that is again depending on your emotional intelligence, the level of your emotional intelligence. Developing others and building bonds. Effectively building bonds is very important with your people all around you, and naturally that happens through when you try to develop them. Unless you groom your subordinates, unless you groom the people all around you, you have failed miserably in your quality as a good manager. Now I will just briefly read out to you the definitions of each of these traits. In self-awareness domain, we have got emotional self-awareness, which the definition has been given by some very leading philosophers, thinkers and managers. The ability to read and understand your emotions as well as recognize their impact on work performance, relationships and the like. Not only you read your emotions, but you also understand how your emotions are going to impact the work performance, relationship and the like. Say for example, if on a morning, on a workday morning, you are angry, maybe because of your family problems or anything. Can you understand, can you realize that you are angry and you are a little out of control because of that emotion which is swamping your mind? It is not allowing you to think rationally, it is not allowing you to think and act rationally, and it is not allowing you to communicate effectively. Okay, so till that anger is clouding your mind, your impact as a manager on the people is going to suffer. Your impact on getting the people work and perform according to desired levels is going to suffer. And similarly, your relationship with people is going to be impacted adversely, because naturally if you are angry, you are going to talk to them not so pleasantly, and that is going to put a dent in your relationship. Even one single day, if you are not talking to your people nicely as they are accustomed to, it is going to put a dent in the relationship, the bond between you and him. Second is accurate self-assessment. It reads, a realistic evaluation of your strengths and limitations, both strengths and limitations. How many of us really think about limitations? We don't. Though in our heart of heart we know that we are not good in these areas, 1, 2, 3. But are we doing something about it? No. We are never making a realistic assessment of our weak areas. Because if we do, then we will try to plug that shortfall or gap, which we are not doing. I am not saying for everybody, but in general. So if some a person with better emotional intelligence, he will certainly look at that.
Just can you summarize whatever?
So I have just started, gentlemen. Emotional intelligence chapter is a huge thing, and I had to talk about so many other things. But I hope by now I have been able to tell you about the different traits in each cluster. Quickly going, summarizing, I would say that self-awareness cluster has got emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment and self-confidence. These three are important aspects of the first cluster. Second cluster is of self-management, where we have got self-control, trustworthiness, conscientiousness, adaptability, achievement orientation and initiative. All these are there. Self-control, the ability to keep disruptive emotions and impulses under control. Trustworthiness, a consistent display of honesty and integrity and that kind of thing. Then we have got social awareness, where we have got three important aspects: empathy, organizational awareness and service orientation. And then we have got social skills, where we have got visionary leadership or leadership, influence, developing others, communication, change catalyst, conflict management, building bonds and teamwork and collaboration. So as a manager, if you are an emotionally intelligent person, then you have to have all these tools near your hands, in your hands, to handle yourself and your people with whom you are working, that is your social counterparts. Thank you.
Thank you.